Welcome. This is the Living in Abundance featured guest conversation. And today I am excited to introduce Elyse Marie Santoro. And we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people who talk about human design do not talk about. And that is the power of your environments as it relates to activating your human design and activating your prosperity in every area of abundance in your life. And so I wanted to bring Elyse on because she has made a difference for me in her ability to guide me through some basic things that I often diminished and took for granted about things I had in my house, as simple as the fabrics on my bed and other things like that, things we do not consider that actually deeply impact the energy that we live with. And Elyse has been doing this for a long time. I will let Elyse give her particular path and story of how she's gotten to this human design work through her work as a Feng Shui designer, as somebody who's also done holistic lifestyle design for multi-million-dollar homes and for places that for many people they would never imagine thinking about how they can bring that same energy into their lives. And so the intention of this conversation is to bridge Elyse's knowledge and wisdom, and she is a projector, and I will let her also share more about how that helps her in her work. But the point of this in the big picture for me is because I help facilitate people in understanding how to integrate and use their human design in the area of their business strategy, whereas, well, it doesn't matter how great your business strategy, if your environment isn't right, you may not actually manage to turn all those engines on. So Elyse, welcome. Please go ahead and tell everyone who you are and a little bit about how you got to the work you're doing today.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Wow. So human design has been an interest of mine for like the last 5 years when I started doing a deeper dive into it for my own life. And the environment part, because I'm a Feng Shui holistic interior designer, fascinated me that there was actually, like, for every person, a specific energetic vibration, because that is what our human design environment is. It is a vibration. And for the different types, a cave's is different than, a kitchen's, and most people don't even really look at their human design environment. They just look at it and go, oh, okay. They have no idea like what it means and how they can actually integrate that energy frequency into their own environment. And that's where I kind of like picked up, because I'm an environment person. I love creating sacred space and spaces that support people's well-being and their success. So I just knew that, if I could help teach people how to design their spaces to align with their human design environment, it could give them the edge. It could support them, in their business. It could support them in their life. Because you don't want to be like a caves and like living in a markets or a kitchen's environment where it's uber busy, because caves, like me, I like privacy, safety. I like quiet. I can't work, like I never understood how people can just work better in the midst of madness. And right. You're markets or kitchens?
I'm kitchens.
Kitchens, yeah.
Put me in a full chaos zone and I will write a book.
Yeah. So, it's like we need to understand who we are, and then apply basic principles to our environment, our workspace, our bedrooms, and then ultimately our entire homes. But right now I'm more concerned in this interview with our workspace and our resting space, because if we're not working, we need to be resting.
Right.
So yeah, that's how I got involved in learning about the environments.
So go back further. So there might be someone listening who's not familiar with you at all. They've never heard of you, and they want to have a better sense of, where did you start and what has been the experience that you had that came before. So tell us where you started and sort of your own autobiographical footprint to here.
where I started with creating environments or
with
human design environments.
with environments, like go back in
Oh,
your career, share.
that goes back very many years. The first, after, I went to school and studied design and then started doing it and starting my own company. Um, the biggest aha thing for me before I got into human design was Feng Shui.
Mhm.
Why? Well, some pretty magical stuff happened after I went to Italy for 2 months and came back to a non-existent business and hired somebody and they did it. And all of a sudden, like, oh, big project opened up and I'm like, oh my God, I need to learn this. So first I was on the path of understanding how energy in one's home works with Feng Shui, the elements, the directions, and then of course, when I started to and I designed beautiful homes over the years for multimillionaires. When 2008 and 9 came and everything, there was a downturn. I actually learned how to design on a dime, but like luxury design on a dime because I have a good eye, and you don't always have to spend a whole lot of money to get a beautiful place. This is what I learned in that downturn. But I love beauty and I love creating sacred space, and I've been doing that for over 40 years with the Feng Shui, and now with the human design as like
Yeah.
another layer. Yeah. And it's exciting because I've created a system,
Mhm.
to help people um, identify and then like be able to know. And the more you tune into what your environment is by living your strategy and authority, the more you'll be able to intuit what needs to happen in your environment. Because honestly, as we evolve spiritually, we need to change up our space
Yeah.
because it needs to evolve with us. So I'm constantly moving things, adding things, removing things. Like my space is like a laboratory.
Right.
I like using it as a place to feel the shifts in the energy. So does that answer your question?
It does. And I'm listening from the perspective of those who are listening and may not have language that we have because we're very
Uh-huh.
familiar with this. So
Okay.
I'm going to ask you to describe what is sacred space. If someone has just sort of fallen into this world, they found this message regarding human design, and now they're hearing the word sacred space. What is that for someone in as someone who's just sort of been living life and not necessarily spent a ton of time immersed in the spiritual nature of their being?
Okay, that's a great question. So for me, the whole premise of sacred space happened as I got closer and more connected in my spiritual connection to God
Mhm.
and Mary. And I wanted to create a space that reflected my spiritual connection, that
Mhm.
made me feel like I was in a holy temple, like to
Mm.
remind me of what is most important. And so, sacred space is for people who want to step into a more spiritual connection to their whoever it is that they honor. Their maker, the universe.
Right.
I do it through Christ and um,
Yeah.
the Blessed Mary. But you create a sacred space when you really have a connection with your home, and then everywhere, kind of like you set up. I set up as like mini altars, that
Yes.
have elements, whether it's flowers, like making it beautiful,
Mhm.
because for me beauty is sacred. And a
Mm.
lot of people, they have different levels of aesthetic awareness as to what beauty is. And what I do, because my aesthetic awareness is very developed,
Mhm.
is I help people elevate their aesthetic awareness so that
Mhm.
they can know how to create their own sacred space. And then if they're conscious and they know what their environment is, that
Mhm.
even helps more, because you could design a sacred space, as a kitchen's. For you, a sacred space would have to have areas in your home where you could express your creativity. because kitchens need,
Yeah.
like to be in motion with their creative. They need like, like the kitchen when you go in and cook, but it
Mhm.
doesn't just have to be the kitchen. It could be other places. So
Yeah.
when I work with people, I know what their environment is, and then I look at their space, and then I can help them kind of craft a
Right.
sacred space that reflects them.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to come back to that. And I know you gave us some good points to sort of make sure we kind of cover this as a whole picture in this conversation. So why don't we start? I know there's several directions we could go, but what is it about, let's say someone's not particularly familiar with human design. Maybe they have that lovely response of, oh yeah, I'm a generator. And other than that, they really don't know anything. Why is the environment important for them to understand as part of their ability to unlock their particular blueprint for success and expansion?
I believe that your environment shapes your psyche, your connection to you, and energetically,
Mhm.
it supports you in what your vision is and what your tasks are. Like certain people can work with a very messy desk, and they can thrive with that, but other people need order, and you just need to know who you are, so you're living in alignment with
Mhm.
your particular human design characteristics,
Okay.
that then would have you see everything in life differently. It would have you view how you move through life, because our environments are not just where we live. Our environments are like who we hang out with, what our
Mhm.
passions are, how we express our creativity. Like environment, like in that book, Willpower Doesn't Matter.
Mhm.
That the author, talks in detail about how environment is important, and it shapes us, and it's not the only thing, but it's a big thing.
Mhm.
Environment. So it's
Right.
like when you look at environment, your particular human design environment can also shape the way you move through life, and if you're more aligned with the environment of yourself, there could be more ease and flow.
Mm, I
Ease and
love.
flow.
So I know that as well, since we sort of reference back and forth some different types of environments, can you go ahead and talk about what the 6 types of environments are?
Okay, so I'll start with caves.
Mhm.
Caves is one environment, and their theme is like privacy, safety, and control. They like, environments that they feel private and safe in. And then there's markets, okay? And markets is that life happens in the workplace. It's like go out, like, like to the markets, like
Yeah.
if you go to one of those, what do they do on the weekends? Those like art
The
art
farmers
fairs,
markets.
or yeah,
Yes. Uh-huh.
and it's like everybody's like wheeling and dealing and talking, and sales are being made. So markets, is life happens in the workplace. Kitchens, which you are, is about, like being able to express your creativity. You thrive where there's activity.
Mhm.
It's like you bounce off the energies of the other people. And even in your own home, it's important that you have places that invoke your creativity in kitchens.
Mhm.
Then there's mountains environment. They have to perch themselves with an expansive view wherever they are. Like, do not sit facing a wall. No, wouldn't be right.
Mm.
I mean, because you want a bigger perspective overview. Now, of course, if you could live up on a higher story of a condo, or if you're in a house and you live more on the mountain,
Right.
that's really good, because mountain people like being above things.
Okay.
They like being above things. Imagine, being on a
Mhm.
mountain, you're above everything, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Valleys is like, you want to be connected, and have your pulse on what's going on. And sound is very important in valleys.
Okay.
Yeah. And then shores, okay, Shores is like living where you have a boundary, where you can step into, like, from one reality to another,
Mhm.
and it's an open environment for people to come to you. um, Shores,
Okay.
and boy, there's so many other, like, what is it called? There's so many levels of understanding each of these environments. That was just very basic.
Right. And I'm going to point out that at the end of this recording, or if you are listening to this recording later, I'm going to include a link where you can schedule a time to actually speak to Elyse, and she actually has an offer as well. So if you're listening to this and you're like, great, now what the heck do I do with this information? Because I don't know where to land it. I don't know how to decipher it. And there's not a ton of information, even if you go to Google, about this stuff to really apply it in your life, which is why we have Elyse in this conversation. So if you're listening and you have that mode going on and you're already trying to solve the problem of how you figure out what your diagnostic is, and you happen to like to know what your Enneagram and all the, don't worry, we're gonna get there. So
Mhm.
I want to take that out of the brain and just put that aside. For those of you who are listening live, I'm streaming to the YouTube, and that's the best place that if you're watching this live, for you to ask questions. So if you're live watching on YouTube, you can drop a question here, and that will just add more content that we can include in this time that we're in this conversation. Excuse me. So we've talked about this a little bit, about definitions. We've talked a little bit about Feng Shui and kind of how this energy and sacred space. So I'm sort of weaving these things back together as we continue this conversation forward. Inside of human design, I know that we have something called deconditioning, and it's that sort of breathing and living into human design. But talk to us about how that's important and how it's connected to this work in how you design your living space.
Well, I feel, since our spaces, our environments are energetic templates, that, when we step into human design really as a study and start to take it on, we go through this deconditioning process, right?
Mhm.
And if we're not living in an environment that is aligned with our strategy, authority, environment,
Mhm.
there's many parts of it, it's going to be more of a struggle
Mhm.
to decondition yourself, because
Right.
there's not the energy that's supporting you being deconditioned. But when you live in an environment that's aligned with your human design environment,
Mhm.
you'll see things that you're meant to see. Things will activate themselves much easier, because you're living in alignment with who you are in an environment that actually is your energetic template. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm going to, remembering I'm listening with ears of people
Yeah.
who may not know what we know in the way we know it. What is activation?
Well, to me, activation is when there's things in our being, in our psyche, in our vision of what we want to create, and act when things are activated, they're actually like set into motion. They're
Mhm.
like,
Okay.
they move forward. And
Yeah.
so, our environments certainly can activate
Yeah.
or keep us stuck.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's many different circumstances that you have to take into consideration. It's, like, your environment is huge because you live, in a space. And if you don't feel good in the space, and you
All right.
know that there's something wrong with it and you don't know what it is, that will gnaw at you and be something that kind of doesn't help your activation towards moving forward.
Right.
So I say to everybody, do your inquiry, like, find out, experiment. You know what I mean? Because unless you hire somebody like myself that has the eyes to see in the way that I do, it's a practice and a journey to actually, like, create your environment to be in full alignment with your soul. It
Right.
it doesn't happen overnight.
Right. So let's say that maybe somebody is just trying to figure out where to start. Maybe something that, what can they start to do now? And oh, actually, you know what? There's something, I'm going to back up for a minute. We've got living environments and we've got work environments. And there's places where we're activating money and places we're activating love. So when I ask these tips, maybe weave in both sides of that. So, kind of so that we don't just all strictly talk about the living side, since we might have some entrepreneurs who are soaking this up, trying to figure out how it helps them move their money. So what are some things they can do right away that, like, okay, well, wow, I'm sitting here listening to this right now, and after I hang up with this, I'm going to go do this. Simple
Well,
steps.
I guess the first step would be to identify what environment are you?
Oh, of course.
Really look at it and then feel into what does that mean without having to know, like, just because for me, a lot of the work I do and I help people when I work with them sharpen their intuition, because it's important to be able to tune in and feel if something's right or not. So, I would say, just find out what you are, and then look around your office and look around your, say, bedroom, and feel if that quality of, say, caves or mountains, you know what I'm saying? If you feel it in there, because that would be the first step, because you're not going to make a decision to change anything unless you feel that it's off.
Okay, but let's go a layer deeper for the people that can't even figure out which direction they're feeling. What is something, I'm asking this question because, in full disclosure, I want you to call Elyse, because I can say this from a testimonial perspective as someone who's worked with Elyse. If you send me to Home Depot or Home Goods, or I don't care if it's Haverty, I don't care how high end you go into fancy art. You know what? I don't have this gene that Elyse has. And a lot of us don't, and we think we do. So we go to Wayfair and we buy shit off Wayfair and assume that we've managed to put it all together. And then I live in Tennessee, so I'm going to pick on the people specifically in Tennessee. Everybody's got the farmhouse look, and everybody's got a painted welcome sign outside their front door. And sometimes it just looks like a uniform issue of Sweet Tea and Jesus around here, which is something that I say. And it's all fine, but it's really hard to show your soul.
Differentiate.
Yeah. So where...
This is a huge subject, Mega. Unless somebody is tapped into their intuition and their creativity.
That's where I was going.
Okay.
How do you get somebody? Because right now we've got to get them to understand they need to tune into their intuition enough for them to dial the phone and call you or schedule a link or whatever.
Right.
So what is something they can do to tune to that intuition just enough for them to actually get their soul to speak up?
Well, I mean, we all know about vision boards, and being able to, we could do them online nowadays. You don't got to go buy a million magazines, but like spend some time identifying what delights you when you look at it. Okay. And start to assemble like a collage of elements that speak to your soul, that delight you. And then put them on something, whether it's a digital board or a physical board, and then I always say after that step, go out and start looking. I love consignment, home goods, furnishing consignment stores, because you find treasures and you don't have to spend a fortune. Honestly, I'm not a real, I have bought stuff at Home Goods. I'm guilty. Once in a blue moon. But I think you find much more soulful objects in a vintage consignment store, or one of those like incredible, they're like antique out in the open markets that happen once in a while here and there. And now that the summer is coming in Tennessee, wherever you are, the summer is coming. They have these. And, you walk around and yes, there's a million objects, but like something might just call you and you start to collect something that means something to you. And that is a beginning, because it will activate your creative soul. And until you connect your intuition and your creativity, very, very hard to express you in your space.
Okay.
That's my feeling, because I've worked with people, and if I just leave them on their own accord, a lot of times they unfortunately miss the boat.
That is correct. And so
you had a firsthand experience.
I do have, that's part of why I love bringing you out to the world so that other people can find you, because I mean, I get to stand in parts of my house, which, I'm in the process of getting ready to do some major disheveling of my life, and know that I'm going to be going, hey, Elyse, guess what? Because I know that I can start fresh, and that your ability, even remotely, because you don't just work with people in person. I want to point it out to people.
Remote is very easy for me to work. I just need videos and pictures.
Yeah, exactly. But people think physical space. They go, oh, well, she's there and I'm here, and that doesn't matter. Yeah. So trust me, because I was getting boxes of things that showed up at my door for my person to follow her instructions from when she was sitting where she was. So it works. So this is, if you have a subconscious block, like, oh, I'm afraid of my, and I say subconscious because it's like, here's how you know you have a subconscious block. You keep repeating the same thing. You keep saying you're going to do the same thing, and no matter what happens, it doesn't actually happen. So if you keep saying, I'm going to evolve my space, and it keeps not happening, there's a block somewhere. So Elyse is good at detecting blocks. So Elyse, where is a place, and I know that I kind of asked this question before, but I'm going to ask it again. One thing to support expansion in present time for them. What's a tip? Put one thing in place.
Well, I'll go to the Feng Shui principles. Connect your inside with your out. If you don't have anything alive in your house, bring in some plants, bring in some flowers, bring in some orchids. I am a big flower lover. Mm-hmm. And, in my home, whether they're good quality silks or they're orchids or fresh flowers, when expansion happens, when you feel delighted, when you feel like a breath of fresh air. And what brings that in better is bringing in life, connecting the outside with the inside. And many people do, and many people don't. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Then I guess the second thing would be to clear out, start going through your house, lessen the load. Clear out the clutter, because clutter jams up energy, whether it's in your closet, on your desk, you know what I'm saying, in the kitchen, in the pantry.
I know all those places. Yes.
It's important, I do it regularly, because, shit gets messed up, then it gets organized and cleaned again. It's like a cycle. It's not like you're going to organize and it's going to stay that way for your entire life. When you're a creative person, you collect and things back up, and, so cleaning your home, organizing your home, and then just bringing in life would be the first step to me in expansion. And as you do that, you just think to yourself, what are you expanding into? Like, what is the thing you want to expand into? Right. Is it more business, more money, more love, more intimacy, more creative self-expression? And then you start looking at your house and go, well, how is my home supporting that? And chances are you may not come up with an answer. and then if you don't come up with an answer, then you need to, hire somebody, because, in an hour's time, I can do an overview of your home and give you recommendations that will start shifting the energy like ASAP. Because I'm really good at doing that, even remotely. Energy isn't site specific.
Yeah. So actually, while we're on that topic, and I see that those who joined live, thank you so much. I actually have some questions, and I know that we're going to get to those questions the best we can, obviously within the framework of, we're not pulling charts and doing things like that here. So we're going to get to that in a minute. But Elyse, while we're has got everybody's attention still, go ahead and share with them. And I will be adding this into the chat. I'll drop it in the chat. Tell them, where can they begin with you in this exploration?
Okay, so I thought, while I knew I was going to be doing this, I said, how could I serve people the best? And I thought to myself, if somebody wants to pick a room, whether it's their home office, their office out of their home, or their bedroom, a room that to me is important to support them, I can do like an audit, like a review with photographs. If you want to send video, and I'll look up your chart, and then we do a reading, and then I make recommendations, easy, simple ones that aren't going to cost you a fortune.
Right.
And then you implement them, and then you start the journey to deconditioning and activating your like soul in the work that you do, so that your environment, when you walk into your office or your bedroom, you're like expanded. How many people can say that they feel expansion when they walk into their office or their bedroom? And I have 40 some odd years of experience being able to give recommendations for people to, shift the energy. So yes, I have this offer. Mega's going to take care of how you get to me, because I'm not really good at the whole link thing.
So I dropped the link, and the investment is how much?
$250
for an hour.
Well, it's an hour with the person, but I do pre-work before I get on the phone, so it's an hour plus.
That's a smoking deal, folks. And here's why: because we're in the conversation about abundance and prosperity as a whole. And a lot of times it's this energy of things that have been really stuck in your life that I have seen people, and I've experienced this myself. You shift one significant energetic block that's been holding you. It could be worth thousands and thousands of dollars that you right now may not even figure out where it's coming from, but because your energy is so blocked, you can't even move that creative force energy forward. So this is amazing.
It's also good for people who are doing okay, but they want to take their whole thing to the next level.
Yeah.
You don't have to have like a block. You could be doing okay, but like you can't seem to break that ceiling and get to the next level.
And that's the distinction. Is I talk to people that are 7-figure business owners who are still like, hey, this is great, but I'd like more orgasms. And I'm like, okay, what do we need to do to work on that? And I bring that up because a lot of people, it is the more block. It's not that you're stuck in the mud. Like, honestly, I would say, Elyse, that we are, we're people that get to serve things that are first world problems in this work, because it's expansion concerns and desires. And, so I know people who have arrived and figured out money, which is the key difference. So Elyse, I have a curveball question for you. What is the difference between having money and having prosperity in your perspective?
If you have the consciousness of prosperity, money will always flow. And money is just like, it's a tangible thing and we need it to live, but it's much better to feel prosperous, like in your home, because listen, let me tell you, I have worked with people who have money and they have very little prosperity. So for me, prosperity is expansion. Prosperity is abundance. Prosperity is a mindset. And you want to feel like your home, bring some luxury in, and it doesn't have to break the bank. It's just in picking the right objects and picking the right elements and aligning it to your human design profile, so when you're living with more luxury, you feel prosperous. Did that answer it okay?
That's a quote. That's a meme. You're going to go back and snippet this and turn it into a reel. Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. So I'm going to go back to some of the questions that popped in here. And so one of those is for, let's say somebody's listening, they already know, they've got at least some concept. What's a tip, a quick tip? If you've got valleys wide, what does the wide, because there's distinctions. What's the difference? What type of valleys are there? And what's it?
Valleys narrow, valleys wide. So valleys wide is like your ability to go out and feel and put yourself in more broad scenarios, like bigger venues, bigger, like places, because valleys is like, being connected to what's going on. So valleys narrow, you keep yourself like more like, closed.
Okay.
But valleys wide is like more of an opportunist. But then again, when I look at somebody's profile and I'm looking at their environment, I'm looking at their environment, but in relationship to other things. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do. And I want to also elevate that particular point for anyone who just might have cruised right past hearing that. Everything in human design, and this is why I warn against becoming intoxicated on TikTok videos about human design generalities, is that there are lots of pieces of advice that you can get about your environments. If you just Google it, there's lots of things you can, if you try to go on TikTok about your manifesting generator projector, but none of it is actually really, really applicable for you until it's brought together from the perspective of an expert like Elyse, who can sit there and take this whole thing into consideration. Because you could be trying to apply basic knowledge against your specific thing, and then you will throw the baby out with the bathwater and say it didn't work. It was another one of those things that didn't work. And what didn't work is that you didn't invest the space and energy for an expert to really delve into your life. And that, to me, is a big distinction in our world of over information. So
Exactly.
I point that out. There's another question that has to do with the cavey people. And it's funny, when I talk to caves people, they always know they're caves people. Are like, oh yeah, that's. What are some things that caves people can do to sort of reclaim their space when they feel like they just can't possibly find a cave?
Well, first of all, I want to say, like, look at windows, okay? Because windows are the eyes of the soul of the house. And really, caves need to be able to have the ability to put curtains and close the connection between the outside and the inside, and then find a place in their space. I don't know how you do that when you have children, but find
I have no clue. Don't ask me. But
you're a cave. Thank God you're not a caves, right?
God.
But you want to find a place where you're uninterrupted and you can focus. Caves,
Yes.
window treatments, curtains that can close, so you feel very protected and like disconnected from the outside. And then find a room, a closet. Turn your master closet into an office. That is an uninterrupted space for you to work.
Right.
Like I have a client that moved her business out of her home because she's a caves, and she was tired of having people that she didn't know come into her home. And now she has an office, and she, you know what I mean? So it's really, I think, helping her psyche to now meet people at a place and not her home. As a caves kitchens, they wouldn't care how many people come over. So yeah, you gotta know who you are and set up your space accordingly.
Right. And I take it from your client, she probably also then created a cave for her office, meaning that she has two caves.
Yes, her home cave and her office cave. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I told her put curtains up in your office. Most people don't put curtains up in an office, but it's important to be able to like monitor the light and be able to close it down if you're working at night, because she's on a floor where people walk by, and have the privacy.
Yeah.
So yes, everybody in a caves scenario needs to set up their space so there's privacy.
Okay. All right. Awesome. And then finally, we've got somebody on here that's markets. So give a little juicy tip for the markets folks before we wrap up.
Well, markets people thrive where people come together to work, So for you, like, you've got to get out. Number one, working from home isn't necessarily the best place for a markets person. You know, you thrive in those, what are those places called? You know, the workplaces where other people are working,
Co-working space. Yeah.
co-working spaces, okay? But where they have a common goal, you know, like maybe like there's work, whatever spaces that you do, because I've never used one, but like maybe it's a specific, you know, there's a specific arena for, you know, entrepreneurs that, you know, have online businesses.
Right.
So that you're able to, you know, maybe be in a brainstorm, big table conversation.
Right.
That really is a good thing for a Marcus person
All right.
to get out and connect like-minded people, generate ideas.
Perfect. All right. Well, I think that covers the questions. So is there anything that we sort of left on the cutting room floor, since we navigated through a lot of different information in this? Is there anything that you want to make sure that we have in the completion of this conversation in their awareness and understanding about this work?
You know, people get very busy with their days and their lives, you know, and their environments just become a place where they just breeze through to sleep, eat, dress, and go again. Or you know, I guess the last thing that I could say, and this takes into account not only human design environments, but Feng Shui and holistic sacred space, you know, figure out how you could form a more connected relationship with your home. Go room by room and go, are you reflecting me right now in the evolution that I maybe just went through?
Yeah.
You know, what is it that you feel like you need? You know, and make the changes. I know, like, for a lot of people, environment is the last place they like to spend money because it's already set up. But, you know, they don't realize that the energetic vibration, the frequency of our space so supports us or not. You know, so just commit to yourself to take the step, get help. You know, first, you know, like do your own intuitive walkthrough and ask questions honestly, and you know, and have your space talk to you. If these walls could talk,
Yeah.
like let them tell you, and then do your board. You know, to activate your creativity, like put together your dream office room or your dream bedroom.
Yeah.
You know, and then let's see if it aligns right with your environment. And you know, I will, what do you call it? Because Feng Shui is so much an integral part. Whoever it is that decides that they want to take my offer up, you know, I will also give you your Feng Shui elements and direction to add to your, you know, to know if your desk is facing your success direction. You know, if you know your elements are balanced and the supportive elements are included in your overall design, because a lot of people just use the elements that they're already strong in, and then they miss the elements that they actually need to support them. So, you know, I have this incredibly wonderful integrated system, you know, to help people create their sacred space for expansion. So definitely, you know, if not today, you know, at some point in the next week or two, I hope to hear from you.
Okay.
And I'll help you have a wonderful space.
Fantastic. Where do people follow you? Where's your social media? Where should they go?
Elyse Marie is my Facebook.
Okay.
And Elyse Marie Lifestyles is my Instagram.
Okay. Fantastic. And that's Elyse spelled Elyse, just in case you're not watching this and you're just driving. So, well, thank you so much. I hope that out of this, there's been some articulation for people who might have heard about some of this stuff. Interior designers are sort of like, it's like saying dentist, right? It's like, okay, what does that mean? So thank you for broadening the expanse of this. And if you happen to be an interior designer listening to this, I'm here to tell you Elyse can guide you in ways that you've never could have learned in interior design school, by the way. So there is wisdom in connecting with Elyse, even if she's in your same general industry. So thank you so much, Elyse. And
thank you for having me. This has been delightful. I love sharing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I love bringing people's wisdom out to the world. So thank you for joining me. And for those of you listening, this is a format that I'm bringing forth as a podcast, a video podcast. I'm actually getting ready to bring up. So when you see this recording, it's on the front side of that process. But there's so much wisdom in all of you who are entrepreneurs, small business owners, that in a world full of AI, in a world full of I can Google the next answer, there is nothing that equates to the genius of another human being who has lived and breathed and experienced the work that you need to get to the next level of your life. So that's my commitment for future content that I'm creating here. And thus, I'm also grateful for my immensely rich community of amazing people like you, Elyse. So thank you.
So much.
Take care.
Bye.